What's up, everybody? I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek. Welcome to Pretty Dece, your daily entertainment and pop culture show. Very glad that you are joining us here on the show today. And by now, if you've been on the internet in any capacity, you've probably seen Nintendo's Labo. If you haven't, let me try to briefly describe it. Basically, Nintendo is going to be selling you Switch software that comes with cardboard, and this cardboard, much like Google Cardboard, has notches. You can kind of poke it out and put it together in a pre-configured way to create these little cardboard toys. And then when you put all the toys together, you slot the Switch directly into these toys, and then you can manipulate them, play with them, use them in a way that the Switch itself can read, and it kind of adds life to these toys. You get to do all kinds of crazy stuff that you wouldn't really think possible. So the example that they showed in the video to start everything off was they made this little piano out of cardboard. They folded it all together, made the box, made all the little keys, and then slotted the Switch down on the front of the piano. So the piano had a screen. And then there was a little door on the side, and they put the Joy-Con controller into that. And then they pressed a key down onto the cardboard piano, and it magically made noise. It magically sounded like a piano, and it does seem like magic. These crazy cardboard toys they're creating seem like true magic. They showed off a ton of them. There's little robots that you hook Joy-Cons to, and then the robots can run around on the ground using just the vibration of the Joy-Con, and you're controlling them on the Switch screen itself. There was a fishing game where you hook the Joy-Con in on where you reel the fishing device. There was a bird that squawked. They showed some strange joysticks and foot pedals that all feature some place to insert a Joy-Con, and then cardboard and string and rubber bands for the resistance and the rest of the physical object that goes along with this. They showed off a steering wheel, like a car steering wheel, a motorcycle, a kind of handlebar situation. All sorts of toys. That's really what these things boil down to. And then the ultimate one they showed that's going to be sold separately as its own kit is a full robot mech suit. It's this backpack you wear, things that strap to your feet, things you hold in your hand, and you control all four limbs of the robot, and then you see on the screen the awesome animated robot doing exactly what you're doing. And these are really, really, truly fascinating. And again, more toy than game is definitely what it seems like. These are not going to be games you play through and beat. These are going to be toys that you get out and you play with over and over again. And most of the time, when people say that a video game is more toy than game, it's in a derogatory context. It typically means that they don't think that the game has structured goals. They don't think the game has a point to play it outside of oh, that's kind of neat, that's kind of cute. And in this, the not having a goal, the just wanting to play with it is the point, is the entire point. This is not going to be for most gamers, This is not even for me. This is not something that's aimed at my demographic. I'm not someone who's going to get out cardboard toys and play with them constantly. But this adds an entirely new demographic to Nintendo's, entire platform. This is going to sell Switch consoles on the concept alone. Parents out there who have young children or children that they maybe wouldn't normally buy a Switch for because they would just sit there and play it all the time. This feels interactive. This feels creative. This feels like learning. So I could see this really selling to parents that they maybe otherwise wouldn't be able to sell to. The thing that I'm really fascinated about with the Labo project is the just functionality of it. How does this work? And really, if you break down the video that they show with the piano specifically, you can start to understand how it actually happens. So the piano itself, you put it all together and it's just kind of empty inside, except for the Joy-Con that you slot into it. And you might not even know this, but your right Joy-Con in your Switch console actually has a little infrared camera in it. If you look at the very top of it, you'll see that it has a little kind of screen area. It looks as if it is a TV remote. It has that little kind of section on the top. That's what points at the keys of your piano, and it reads it using its IR camera to see on the cardboard which keys you've pressed down. So when you press a key down, it reveals a section of cardboard that the camera reads, so it can tell each individual key you press, it can tell when you press the play button and record button, and it feeds all that information to the Switch itself. So it behaves like magic. Similar thing on all the others. On the robot, there's a backpack where it can read the different levers as they move up and down, because the Joy-Con kind of slots in there on the back. And when it sees the position of the levers in the backpack, it feeds that to the Switch and then makes your robot on screen act accordingly. So really, that's insanely clever. They're getting a ridiculous amount of data fed in on a single input, a single Joy-Con that they can put in these things. And that's just using the infrared sensor. These Joy-Cons can also register motion and tilt. It can send out vibrations. So just with a single Joy-Con, they can do a ton of things just by adding a little bit of cardboard and rubber bands and various like resistance. This is incredibly genius. This is one of the smartest things that I feel like we've ever seen come out of gaming. And it's an incredibly unique use of this hardware, of gaming hardware in general. I'm incredibly excited to see what future things they do as well, because that's the other piece here is we've seen sort of what they've come up with so far, but this is going to be incredibly expandable. They're going to take this Labo concept and are going to be able to do a million ridiculous things with it. Right now it is definitely aimed towards children and towards just play. But imagine if this same concept got applied to, say, a rock band kit. We've already seen the foot pedal in the video. What if I was able to build a little guitar that I was able to then wear, strap the Joy-Cons in, and then actually play Rock Band? Incredibly cheaply, because I just had to buy the cardboard. What if I was able to make little drum pads and pretend to hit them, and the Joy-Con picked up kind of where the impact was coming from, or where my hand was at? That'd be a perfect use of this concept applied to more of an adult type of product. What if, for example, if you remember back on the original Xbox, the Steel Battalion controller. It was this ridiculously expensive mech game that shipped with this insane controller that wrapped around you and had, hundreds of buttons on it and two giant joysticks and just this ridiculous setup. What if Nintendo did a game like that with a controller like that was made entirely out of cardboard? Again, in the video, we see joysticks. They create a joystick that they just put a Joy-Con inside of, and then they can read all the directions, they can read button presses, it can do all of that. They could do the same thing with all the little buttons on the console for your Steel Battalion type controller. So I'd love to see them kind of take the Labo concept and apply it to something that is more of a traditional video game. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for that. But no matter which direction they take this is certainly a really awesome, really fascinating concept, and I cannot wait to hear more about it. So that's going to do it for Pretty Dece for today. Thank you very much for joining me on the show. Make sure that you like Pretty Dece on Facebook, facebook.com/PrettyDeceShow. Follow me on Twitter @PrettyDeceShow and visit PrettyDeceShow.com. You can check out Pretty Dece Show every day here on YouTube or in the podcast version, which you might be hearing there, or in the Anchor app. Just search for Anchor in your respective app store. And whatever platform you are choosing to watch or listen on, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of the content.